there, welcome to the channel. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can paint a bird of paradise here using acrylic paints. So let's get started. You can get a reference photo of this bird of paradise on my Pinterest board, and that will be linked below. So let's start with the darkest values. Go ahead and get your brush wet. And we want to start with the greenery of the stems and the leaves. And to do that, we want to mix a little bit of a more neutral, natural brown. So let's take some of this Van Dyke brown, mix it with a little bit of this sap green, and then that should give us a nice dark value green. And I'm going to try to do this painting with only one brush. This is a size 8 round brush. So let's take this darkest value green and go ahead and put it along the stem. So when you're working with one round brush, you can think about your pressure and how that creates a different shape on the canvas or the page or the paper with your brush. When you put more pressure, you're getting a wider, thicker stroke, and then when you lighten up on the pressure, you're getting a thinner stroke. So that's great to practice, to make different shapes with. Some painters do one stroke painting, which is really neat, and they just try to make every shape with just one stroke. Okay, so paint this leaf on the other side with the dark green. And you want to use your darker tone kind of sparingly, so I think that's good for the dark green tone. So let's rinse off the brush. And actually there's a little bit of green on this part of the flower. So let's actually take a little bit more of that green and then put it on the underside of the flower here. And I want to make sure that my lines are fairly neat. That one got a little bit messy, so I can go back over it and just make sure that my brush strokes are clean and that I have neat edges, because that can make a difference in how nice your painting turns out. Okay, so that's good for the green. So now let's look at the other parts of the flower and what kind of darker values we can do for those. So underneath this part of the flower, it looks like there's a very dark pink. So let's take some magenta and mix it with a little bit of this bluish purple that's already on the palette, and then add a little bit of water to that. And then let's put that in right here where you see a nice deep pink magenta color, and then put that along here where it's showing on those flowers. And then you can see that it's also on the top of the flower, so you can put that in as well. Okay, so that looks good. So I want to focus on lighter tones in this painting. I want to do some kind of pastel shades. So that's something that I'm keeping in the back of my mind. And now let's move on to the darkest value of these nice yellow flowers. And we have a nice yellow ochre in our paint palette that we can just go ahead and grab and put those darker values in on these flowers. So we'll just put them kind of in between where the flowers are, because that's making a nice shadow, and then usually underneath the flowers is where you have your darker values and your shadows. And if the colors mix together, that's totally fine. I love that effect in my painting when things mix together. That's part of the fun and the joy of it. Okay, so at this point, then we can get this little part right here, which is kind of, let's say, like almost a, what's the word I'm looking for? Periwinkle shade. So mix a little bit of the blue, that's the ultramarine blue, with a lilac purple. And I just have that lilac purple on my palette. And I recommend that you do grab that as a already like a tube color instead of mixing it all the time, because it's a great color, and if you use it a lot, it's good to have it instead of have to mix it every time. So then let's take this darker periwinkle shade and just put it along where the shadows are of this part of the flower. I'm not sure if this is the stamen of the flower. It could possibly be. But these are beautiful tropical flowers and they're really fun to paint. Okay, so that looks good. At this point, let's go and put in, how about we put in some of the lighter tones of the stem and the leaf. So for that color, I want a little bit of a brighter green. So I want kind of a greenish yellow. I have some of this kind of a neon yellow and a neon green left on my palette. So I'm going to pick that up and put it in to the leaves and see how that shows up. So that's a really light, bright color. See if it'll show up on top of this one. So it doesn't, it's more transparent, so it can work as like a glaze, but not, it will not cover the stem. So that's not exactly what we wanted. So instead, let's grab some of this lemon yellow, put it on the palette, and then try to get a little bit of green into it. And that should give us a nice bright green. That should be opaque, so let's try that. Okay, so that's a little more opaque. And we want that to go right here. And just put that in around the leaf. You can see it's pretty bright, a bright green. So what I want to do now, you can take another pre-mixed color that I have is this. It's like a minty green. It's one of my favorite colors, a seafoam green. So I want to use that and see how that goes on top of this. So right here, it's covering it up quite a bit. I don't want to cover it completely. So kind of blend it in, use it a little bit sparingly, but see how that kind of brings the two colors together and unifies them a little bit more. So that's looking nice. And I do recommend that you use colors that are your favorite colors, colors that you love. Even if they're not traditional, put them on your palette and use them, even in unconventional ways, because that's part of creating a painting practice that you love, is using colors that really speak to you. Okay, and let's take this teal and put it in the body of this, the main part of the flower, because if you look at a reference photo, it is this beautiful minty green shade. So just put that in. Okay, so that looks good. And then if you want to add a little bit of a highlight right in the middle of that to make it pop, you could do that. And let's try with this pastel yellow and see if we can put that right in the middle, and that'll give us a nice highlight. And then pick up a tiny little bit of titanium white on the tip of your brush and then put that on top of that yellow just to bring out the highlight even more. Okay, so that looks good. If you need to blend, go ahead and do some blending there. And we could try taking this lemon yellow color, this pastel yellow, and put it on top of the leaf, put it in the middle of the leaf, and that's going to try to bring out those veins in the leaf. And then see maybe if we could put a little bit of lines of the leaf onto the side to give it a little bit of more detail and more interest. Maybe blend that in if you would like, so it's not too precise or too exact. Okay, so at that point you can kind of see where we've lost a lot of the darker values here. So if I take a little bit of this green and add a little bit of the brown, mix that to get that dark tone back, and then put that back in where you need it, right here where we lost the delineation of the stem and the leaf, put that in. you're just adding back that shadow a little bit more where it belongs. Okay, so that looks good. Okay, so now let's move up to this part, the top part of the Bird of Paradise flower. And let's use this pastel yellow color and then just put in with that nice light yellow, put in these petals. And these are beautiful petals. They almost look like the feathers of a bird. And it's okay if I go on top of this yellow ochre that we already put down and just put that in. It's a beautiful, beautiful color. And then let's use this periwinkle lavender shade and put that on top of this little part. Looks like a little bird type of shape. I don't know, maybe that's where the Bird of Paradise got its name. Just put that on top and that looks good. Okay, so at this point, your Bird of Paradise is just about complete. You could maybe add a little bit more of this lemon yellow, kind of in between and around those feather shapes, kind of blend it in a little bit more. Okay, but for the most part, this looks like it's finished. If you wanted to, you could have some of this electric pink neon paint shade, and we could maybe put a little bit of that, dance a little bit of that around the top where this magenta color was. Mix it in with the green a little bit. And that's just giving a little bit more vibrancy and interest to the piece. And you could do the same thing with the yellow. If you had like a neon yellow, you could put that in. But I think that's good for now. Okay, so I think this painting is finished. I'm gonna stop here, even though I'm tempted to keep messing with it, but I will step away and call it done. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Give it a try, and it's a nice tropical fun thing to paint, so it's really a good project for you to try. Okay, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video. Please like and subscribe for more tutorials. Bye.